All right, good morning, Chair Postman, members Garrett, Vollendross, staff and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Thanks, Dustin. Good morning, everybody. We're going to convene the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board meeting for Wednesday, June 7th, 2023. First item up is approval of meeting minutes from two caucuses on May 24th, 2023 and June 1st, 2023. Is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve the meeting minutes from May 24th and June 1st.
In a second.
Second.
Right, those are approved. Thank you. And now we're going to get an update on DDE in Central Washington from Director of Enforcement Education, Chandra Wax. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, board chair, board members. I'm here to provide a situation update reference DDE contaminants found in cannabis and soil from several licensee locations in Eastern Washington. WAC 314-55-108 sets the action limit for DDE at 0.1 parts per million. This action level was set by emergency rule in 2016 and permanent rule in 2017 through consultation with Department of Health, Department of Agriculture, and Oregon Health Authority. Between January and March of 2023, more recently, results from random samples collected by E&E staff reflected positive results for DDE, a breakdown remnant of DDT. 7 2023 results were above action limits, an average of 0.19 parts per million, and 5 of those results were positive, but below action limits, of an average of 0.053 parts per million. 2 additional results with DDE above action limit 0.14 were identified in September of 2022. The detections of DDE were traced back to this area in Okanogan County. The identified area was defined as a 5-mile stretch of land along the south end of the Okanogan River and north of Lake Pateros. There are 18 licensees located in this area. E&E sent an email to each of the 18 licensees to inform them about test results and the soil, water, and product testing that would occur. There were 5 licensees in this area with DDE above action limits, so E&E staff called each of them individually on April 6th to tell them about these test results and educate them about the admin hold we would put in place, request product records, and request a licensee-initiated recall. Afterwards, our LCB communications team ensured a detailed message was shared with licensees, legislatures from the Okanogan area, local public officials, and stakeholders. At the same time, LCB staff met with our state certified labs, impacted licensees, trade associations, and our partner agencies to make sure we were being transparent, including input, and being responsive to that input. Enforcement education sought out the advice of our partners in ecology and ag and developed a plan to ensure there were not contaminants in the products available to the public. We also considered the capacity of the WSDA lab to conduct these tests and collected a number of samples that would be able to return results in a reasonable time frame. On April 11th, soil samples were collected. The soil samples report is not complete yet, but according to the Department of Ecology, the levels of DDE and DDT and lead and arsenic in the soil samples are above state standards. Licensees will be notified and provided copies of those results when they're received. So LCB has collected a total of 124 water and product samples from January to May 2023 from the impacted area. We're going to throw up some slides so you don't have to write all these numbers down, but I'm going to give you some summaries. LCB partnered with Ecology for soil samples, which, as you know, were collected on April 11th. We've received results from the lab for 97 of those samples. 54 were cannabis foliage samples. 40 were cannabis oil and rosin samples. 3 of those were water samples. 66 of the 97 samples we've received have DDE detections. 28 of those were foliage. 38 of those are cannabis oil and rosin. 44 of those samples failed for DDE concentrations above action limit. 36 of the cannabis oil and rosin samples failed, and 8 of the foliage samples failed. 20, did you have a question?
Yeah, I don't see those numbers on the slide we're looking at.
I think that might be another slide, the second
Oh.
slide. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. 24 of the foliage samples that did not fail have a moderate concern action result, which if concentrated would likely rise above action limits. In the foliage samples, other than DDE, 10 other types of pesticides were detected. I'm sorry, is somebody else asking a question?
No.
Okay,
No.
probably just heard something in the room, sorry. 10 other types of pesticides were detected below action levels. And in the cannabis and oil samples, 17 other pesticides other than DDE were detected. 23 of these samples had above action limits in the additional pesticides. The highest concentration of DDE is 1.7 parts per million in cannabis oil and rosin sample. The lowest concentration of DDE in a positive sample is 0.018 parts per million, and the average overall DD concentration is 0.278 parts per million. We are still awaiting more test results. As results from the collected concentrate and foliage samples are returned, we are taking the following actions. 1, if cannabis tested above action limit, the admin hold was retained and we will pursue destruction of that product. 2, if the cannabis tested positive but below the action limit, the admin hold is lifted on that product, but they cannot concentrate or extract the product without testing it again before it goes to the market. And if the cannabis did not reveal detectable levels of DDE, the admin hold on the specific product was lifted. Of the 5 licensees with admin holds, 1 hold has been lifted, with 4 holds currently still in place, and the holds have been lifted on the specific products with no detectable limit of DDE. Holds when there is DDE detected but not above action limit, further testing is required before going to the retailer if the cannabis is extracted or concentrated. There is concern that the contaminants in the product will exceed action limits if it's extracted or concentrated. The LCB has been working with the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Ecology to support their processes for funding that was awarded by the legislature for grants and farmers and a study to consider soil remediation. We recognize the significant impact this has on licensees and also the risk this poses to the public. So we are acting responsibly, swiftly, and intentionally. Our goal is to ensure that the cannabis products are safe and licensees and stakeholders are informed as updates are available. And we also continue pesticide investigations statewide. Questions?
I have no additional questions.
No, not at this time for me.
Okay, and I can send you these numbers too so that you have
Okay.
them.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, sorry about that. Our next update today is on our system modernization project, our big computer program update program. Everything. I mean, I'm sorry, I won't even try to describe it. Tony, you can. Tony, Deputy Director.
Good morning, Chair Postman and members Volendroff and Garrett. Our systems modernization project, which is built on the Salesforce platform, has release 1 occurring on June 21st. Release 1 involves the agency launching a new web portal that will have 3 different functions for the public to use. The June launch feature involves 3 services, including public records requests, banquet permits, and household moves. So when the public goes to our website, they will be automatically connected with this new portal. The All the business for the banquet permits, the applications, the payments, and the reporting will be done through this portal. Public records requests can be made via this portal by filling out a short online request. Household move permit applications, which are important for when you move alcohol from out of state for personal use, can be used through this portal. So you no longer have to mail the agency the form. And the system will be turned on the 21st. If you happen to put in a banquet permit late on the 20th, no problem. It will still be processed. It will still go through the system because it's still an automated system for the banquet permit. That will be seamless. And if you do it on the 21st, you'll be go directly to the portal. So that shouldn't be a problem. This should be fairly seamless for the public. And this is just the first part of the portal, which will eventually be used for many parts of our business. And the public will see much more of this as we roll out future parts of SMP through Salesforce. So we don't anticipate a slowdown at this time. We anticipate that we will be able to roll out as scheduled. We are currently testing the system. We are currently training our staff on the system. We will always update the public if there's any delay. We always have a no-go meeting the Friday before. In this case, we have a holiday on Monday, the 19th. And so we have our no-go meeting on Tuesday, the 20th. So it's a little bit trickier this week, this time, but we will sort it out and inform the public. But again, it should be seamless for them because banquet permits they already do online. This is just going through a different portal. And we're really excited to see how this small part of our big platform is going to work. So.
Cool. And for others, you know, so banquet permits already is going to be very much the same, but for all these things, they'll be in the same place generally. People don't have to go find anything different. So as you said, just to reinforce for the public, ideally, nobody really notices the front end change so much, that the user interface there, but it really makes a big difference for us inside the building and how we're able to deal with it from that point on, right?
Yes, and it makes a huge difference internally with our tracking system and how quickly we can process it.
Great.
And if people have any questions, I think the system is intuitive as far as filling out the fields in the form. Of course, they can contact us and our staff can walk them through it, but I think it's very intuitive, like those features where you hover over it if you have a question, or it doesn't let you submit if you fail to fill out a box type of thing.
Good.
That I think we're used to from other forms.
So that's release one. It's sort of the first public facing piece of this. How many releases are there in the entire SMP? Do we even know at this point?
Well, I can tell you this phase of SMP has 2 releases,
Okay.
and the very large release is release 2 in March of 2024.
Right.
And then we go on to phase 3, which will have its own releases, and that's involving enforcement.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Good.
Good job.
Sounds like it's going well. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move to rulemaking timelines and turn it over to Dr. Kathy Hoffman, our research manager. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Postman, board members Garrett and Vollendroff. Not a lot to update since I updated you on Monday, but I do want to make one correction on one thing I shared on Monday, and that was with respect to the 2023 liquor legislative implementation. I misspoke and said we had not filed the 101 on that. We did file the 101 on that on May 24th, and Daniel's working that project very nicely, working on some draft rules right now, and he should have those ready to go for our internal project team and external release in the not so distant future. So just wanted to provide a correction there, but other than that, no updates on the alcohol side to provide other than what we spoke about on Monday. And then on the cannabis side, no update since Monday either, other than, I think, and Cassidy, maybe you want to speak to this, but Cassidy is going to be working on a survey for the sampling rule. So it'll be a survey that goes out to licensees to help us get a better idea of the landscape, as it were. I know we had a focus group several months ago where we were trying to get a better idea of how the cannabis sampling rules were working, and we want to do a little follow-up on that as well. So Cassidy will be working on that, and hope to get that out probably towards the end of this month, correct, Cassidy? Okay. All right, and we'll also reach out to industry as well, to our associations to see if they can help distribute that survey. Anything you want to add there, Cassidy, before?
No, that's it for now. I will follow up next board meeting and caucus to let everybody know what's going on a little bit more.
Great.
Great, thank you for that. Also, just want to let you know the CR 101 to implement the THC bill. So that's 5367. Cassidy will bring that to you on June 21st. That is in the works, and we do plan on presenting that. But other than that, no additional updates other than what we offered on Monday. And if folks want to review that, it's on our website already. So I'll
Great.
stop there with updates. Any questions, concerns?
No
Nope.
questions.
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should we move then to consideration of the rules petition?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Let's do so. Go ahead.
All right, so for some background here, we received a rule petition on April 19th from Todd Luther, of Okanagan Gold. And he's asking that and I'll just read the issue statement because that really states it very clearly. Whether the board should initiate rulemaking to amend WAC 314-55-108. Director Wax already spoke to that rule this morning, to consider increasing the current action level or tolerance of pesticide chemical residue on cannabis product from 0.1 parts per million for pesticides not listed in rule or otherwise authorized for use in the production of cannabis to 0.5 parts per million, but specifically for DDE. And that's the product that Director Wax was speaking about earlier. So in the recommendation document, there's a very thorough analysis of our rulemaking activity on this. I won't get into this. And again, this is something Director Wax spoke to, but emergency rules went into effect for that particular section. So 314-55-108 in May of 2016, became permanent in May of, I believe it was May of 2017. But those rules were promulgated in consultation with Department of Health and Department of Agriculture, as well as our partners in Oregon, to set that 0.1 parts per million for action levels for products that were not listed in that 59, that list of 59 pesticides we currently have in rule. With respect to divisional feedback on this particular petition, there was not a lot of feedback. I just want to point out that these rules would not be retroactive even if we moved them forward. I think there was some question about whether or not they would be. Typically, that's not the direction that we would go with rulemaking unless we had a legislative mandate to do so. There was some feedback from Public Health and Prevention that sort of point to what the U.S. General Accounting Office on Pesticides and Tobacco described, with respect to DDT, and that there was some connection to carcinogen, but primarily in animal tests. So just want to point that out. But I do also want to point out that from the Public Health and Prevention perspective, there was no compelling reason to change the threshold limits for any of these chemicals at this time, because there hasn't been any research to indicate that we should at this point. And then there's a brief DEIB and social equity analysis. Certainly there's disproportionate pesticide exposures, mouthful there, associated with folks working near these pesticides that's a concern, but that isn't really what we're talking about here. And so I did touch on that very briefly, but just talk about what this particular rule petition was pertaining to. So 3 options that you always have in considering whether or not to approve or deny a rule petition. That is to deny the petition and maintain the status quo. Here, I would offer that we just don't have enough research to suggest that changing parts per million for this particular pesticide derivative is appropriate at this time. Second option is to deny the petition and offer an alternative approach. Sometimes that can offer a rapid solution, but at a higher risk to the agency because we don't have a rule in place to say one thing or another. And then the final is to accept the petition. And in this instance, again, we don't have any research that indicates that we should change that parts per million for these other pesticides at this point. Again, like I said, there's been no material change in available information concerning the identified pesticide or its breakdown derivatives since the rules were originally adopted to consider changing action levels. But even if we did, rules would be prospective, not retroactive. And the other risk going into rulemaking is that we don't do a rule change at all, which happens sometimes. We've seen that with some of the petitions that have come forward to us. So I will stop and ask if there are any questions.
I know I don't think we should accept its position at this point. There's no science or anything really that would argue for allowing more DDE. We just don't know. And the petition says low DDE levels are not harmful. We don't know that. And so, but I think there are good questions about that long list of things that Department of Ag tests for. I know your science work group is looking at this as well, and how we look at what is a allowable level in what sort of product. Is there a long-term thing we could look at here? I mean, what should we be doing, and maybe even on semi-regular basis, even if it's every 5 years? How do we go look at that list, see what science there is, see what tests are telling us?
That's a great question, Chair Postman, and I really think this is something that the cannabinoid science work group is starting to dive into. And we're starting with, considering what any detectable level of THC is, first of all. The group has begun to talk about that, and we've also been starting to talk about contaminants, where they're showing up and how they're showing up on products, right? On products or in the soil that in which these products are grown. But I think to your point, going back and checking these things every few years would be a really good direction for us to take. And I would offer that, and Cassidy's on screen here, and I invite you to provide any feedback you'd like to, Cassidy. But I think as we start implementing the THC bill, we may get to a point where it's appropriate to open up 314-55-108 and take a look at that list of 59 pesticides and see if that's those are the 59 we need to bring up and rule, or if there's anything we need to add, subtract, or adjust. But I think that could come down the road once we know a little bit more about these things. I hope that helps.
It does, yeah. But so the 59 is in rule, and then the 243, do I have that number? 48?
That's correct. Minus that 59.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
That lives somewhere else, right? We if I recall, when we did the rulemaking around testing,
Yeah.
that what we do, we don't have that list of compounds anywhere in our rules, but we reference that Department of Ag has stuff, right? Is that how we handle that?
That's correct. Department of Ag has that list of 243 that you're referring to.
What about reviewing that then? How do we go about that? The 59, even though that took us years
Right.
to get to, in some ways is easier because we know what they are. These are things we believe people would apply. DDE is not anything anybody applies, but lives there. I don't know what else is on that list. Can we get some kind of smart eyes on the big list?
Yeah, I think we could, and I think that's something that we could work on with Department of Agriculture
Sure.
moving into the future. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
And then of course,
I was gonna say, does that, Kathy, fall under your research?
It absolutely does, Board Member Garrett. I'm really glad you brought that up because I think this is something we're really looking forward to diving into once we get that research unit up and running.
Yeah, and I just want to say I concur, David, with your assessment that we just don't have enough evidence. I think, I mean, and I also wonder, I mean, why there's 59, why just one? Why would we just, so I think looking at this toward the future is another thing. I do appreciate the question. I do appreciate the petitioner's request. And I think it, actually, I have even more questions as this whole DDT, DDE thing has come through, and labs we use and testing. I mean, it's just brought up a whole lot of questions for me throughout this entire process that I think questions like this are added to yet another list of questions that I feel like we need to work through as a board, as an agency related to this.
absolutely. Yeah, and you know, even though there isn't any great flood of new science since we started this, there's work being done. There are more people who are experts in the science. We're getting there, and so it just behooves us to evolve with this and always be willing to look back at the things we did when we started, when there was no roadmap, and say, okay, what do we know? What can we learn? You know, just thinking about our own capabilities, the fact we have a research unit. We didn't have that when we started this process. We didn't have a robust rules team when 502 passed, you know.
Right.
So we're in a better position. Let's use that kind of infrastructure of 2023 to look back at some of those other things and go, all right. So I think we can do that without accepting this petition because this is too really prescriptive in terms of plucking, as Jim said, one compound off this huge list. And I understand why, because it's
Yeah.
you know, the market disruption, the economic disruption is for real. But we can't just go and pick one because it tested hot. The whole point was if something was hot, we're gonna find it. We can't now say, okay, now let's lower it so we don't get that signal. I think that would hurt us.
Yeah,
Yep.
and if I may, I would offer that you know, we just changed our pesticide testing rules, our mandatory pesticide testing rules, 314-55-102. And this is an example of those rules doing what they were designed to do, what the agency had hoped they would do for the consumers in the state of Washington.
Yep.
So, okay.
I just want to make one quick comment, and that is to thank Member Garrett for bringing up the research team before I had an opportunity, because again, I think that is just a perfect example of why we set up this group and the work that this group has the potential to cover to help us make really good evidence-based decisions as we move forward.
You're training us all, Jim. You're getting on board.
If I may really quickly, Cassidy, is there anything you'd like to offer before board moves on this?
No, I think you covered it. Thank you.
Sure.
Great. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. And then that we will look for a motion. I would say to deny the rule petition that requested a new action limit for DDE.
This is Jim. I make a motion that we deny the request to set an action limit for specific pesticides not listed in Rule DDE to 0.5 per million.
This is Ali, I second.
Great, then that is approved unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Thank you, Kathy.
We are to the point of general public comment. Got 3 people signed up, all here in the room. And so first is Gregory Foster. You'll have 4 minutes, of course, Gregory, and Dustin will remind you at 3 minutes and 30.
Hello, everyone. Gregory Foster with Cannabis Observer, and it's good to see you today. I'm going to continue us on the theme of the legacy environmental pesticides action that's been prominent today, and First, thanks to Director Wax for that very thorough update. Was very helpful. A lot of information to share, and I hope that y'all will continue to keep everyone informed publicly.
Yeah.
One suggestion, just in general, this general public comment section is after we take actions in the board meetings. And so in this circumstance, this particular rulemaking petition, there was no opportunity for public comment before the board took action. So just as a general structural suggestion, many other agencies do this. They have the public comment before the agency addresses agenda items where you take action. Anyways, so wanted to talk about the ecology soil remediation pilot program. That's $5 million in the capital budget this last year that was put in. And I know that the agency itself is a participant in that work, and I hope that you'll include updates about how that is going and as that progresses. And if possible, and I think there's a lot that I'm still learning about all of this stuff and would appreciate more guidance on it. I want to see if there's a way that we can use this process, this funding, to advance cannabis and hemp science, fill in some of the data holes that we have, but it's a little unclear about how the funds can be used. So that's what I'm trying to learn and figure out. So the money is coming from the model toxics control account. And so there's some limitations on that. And it says the money is provided solely for the Department of Ecology to implement a pilot program located in Okanogan County to remediate soil contaminated with DDT and DDT remnants. So it sounds a little bit like it falls under the toxics cleanup program at Ecology, and that falls under the Model Toxic Control Act that's been in place since 1988, and it's like a well-oiled machine, it seems like, from what I can tell. It also introduces some questions about who's liable for this, who actually has to pay for it, and who actually has to do the cleanup. But getting to the question of kind of a creative suggestion for how we can actually use this in a helpful way. So that process Ecology follows requires a remedial investigation or a feasibility study to define the extent and magnitude of contamination at the site. And it also looks at potential impacts on human health and the environment and alternative cleanup technologies that could be evaluated for possible use. I'm wondering whether cannabis and hemp could be one of those alternative cleanup technologies in this circumstance. We've got evidence that maybe it takes it up. There's a lot of sort of urban legends or maybe rural legends around whether hemp can remediate soil and toxics and compounds out of the soil. This would be a very good opportunity to try and get some actual data around that. Set up a pilot program. The WSU folks have been running field
Gregory, you have
trials
30
on hemp
seconds.
varieties. We could get them involved with all this part, plant some hemp there, do some actual testing, do some actual measurements about it, plant some cannabis there since it's licensed premises and you can actually do that. But if we actually can get some data that shows that the hemp can pull that out, maybe that can kickstart things around using that for hempcrete, getting it out of the environment, and doing something other than what we've got going on there. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I would just say, Gregor, we actually, there was some talk about trying to, before the session was over, some kind of pilot program for remediation, if there was money to just get those growers who are in the impacted area to grow. And they did this, and the wording around that is a little bit vague, how you use that $5 million, but because it's MATCA, you're right. And I don't know all those answers, but I meant to ask Chandra. So we will have more on that. Sorry. Next up, Peter Manning, please.
I agree with you too, Greg, on that. Good afternoon, board member, Postman, Chair Postman, and Ollie Garrett and Valendroff. I'm here today to, first of all, my name is Peter Manning from Black Excellence Cannabis. I am the president of that organization. It has come to our attention that Ponder Diversity Group is actually corresponding with people that have applied for an application to receive a social equity license. It's my understanding that Ponder is telling those applicants that they cannot use their points in the scoring rubric to combine as a group entity. They have to use it. The point rubric from Ponder's point of view can only be used for one person. It's my understanding with the LCB, from the LCB, that is not the case, that you can actually take multiple people to create points in the rubric. I would like the LCB to take time to look into that matter. We believe that the LCB is committed to making this program work, and we believe that they, through their actions they have taken thus far, are really trying to get the social equity program off the ground. But the Ponder Diversity Group sees it a little bit different. I think we need to get some clarity there, like ASAP, because I have here an email from Ponder where Ponder actually doubles and triples down on how they're going to gauge the DIA map and the timeframes thereof. They're only including 1980. If you were in the DIA in 1981, my understanding from what I read here that you don't qualify. But from the LCB standpoint, when you look at the DIA map, they're in the timeframes, they're in blocks of 10 years. I don't know how Ponder's coming up with that conclusion. I think clarity needs to be expressed there to Ponder on how the LCB interpreted that, and how Ponder Diversity Group should also interpret that. There's a lot of disinformation out there now, and Ponder is basically in line of what we thought it was in the beginning, that you could not compound points in the rubric, that it was going to be based off one person. And that's what Ponder's indicating here. Once again, I'll state, we would like to get some clarity on that as far as how Ponder is doing that and what is the LCB's take on that. Keep in mind, we are not here to point fingers or to muddy up the situation at all. We truly believe that the LCB has every good intention on making this program work. We have worked with the LCB on various issues when it pertained to this rubric, as well as the social equity program. But we do think that we have to get some type of bearing with this. We need to get clarity on this, Mr. Postman, Board Member Valendroff, and Board Member Garrett. This isn't right to have. This is a real stressful situation for the Black and Brown community, because they've waited 10 years to get into industry.
Peter, you have 30 seconds.
And now it's more convoluted. Now that we're right close to the finish line. So if we could take some time to address these issues, we'd appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next person is Damian Mintz. Morning.
Good morning. I'm here today in a suit, missing appointments on my birthday. No offense to you all. It's not because I miss spending time here at the LCB. I'm here because I felt like I needed to be here. So let me get to the point of why I'm here. Previously, I spoke to you guys about the gray area, finger pointing, misinformation, not my job tactics. That seems to happen within government agencies. Since you have been under new leadership and undergone personnel changes, I've seen a real effort on LCB's part to stop that from happening. The issue I am having is with this application process. There's misinformation, confusion, and a lot of extra stress with this application process of the new social equity program. I cannot get a consistent answer from the mentors, LCB, or Ponder. Everyone's interpreting the same thing differently. I started to fill out my application with Ponder. I was locked out early. I was sent a new invitation. When I opened it, all my previously saved information was in there. I completed the application, got an email back saying the application was complete. Then I started receiving emails saying my application was not complete. I sent out emails asking what else was needed to be done. I received an email saying my application process was complete and I just needed to wait until I hear back from Ponder. Then I started getting phone calls from Ponder with voice messages saying my application is not complete. Then I sent out another email to Ponder After my return phone calls were not answered, in the email, I included the previous emails and the phone number that was calling, and I received no response. This is just to find out if my application is complete. Why is this simple question so hard to answer? I cannot imagine the rest of the problems that will come up considering the issues of interpretation that I have heard regarding scoring rubric and ownership. Why is the LCB hands off at this critical moment? What is going on? Who's steering the ship? Are we going back to the same old tactics? No one has an answer for me. Why? This is to bring it to your attention, not to attack the LCB, but there are definitely some issues going on with this third-party vendor that need to be addressed. And there's no other outlook that I have other than coming here and talking to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure we will get you an answer for that. Hold on. Okay, we have one late breaking sign up joining us online, Christopher King.
Hang on. I'm trying to get there. I'm busy right now and I'm traveling. I don't know if you can see me or not. I'm kind of here. All right, listen. I'm
We can
not
see you.
late because I'm in a parking garage downtown. I wrote in a couple days ago and said I was going to speak. So I don't know if I'm late or not. I don't think so. Anyway, all these problems that these guys are just talking about, and they're like, well, I'm not here to attack anybody. I'm not here to attack anybody. It's like they had to sit on a sword. You know, you're allowed to attack a public official. That you guys have to take it. That's what happens when you take that role. And there's plenty to attack about. These people are complaining for valid reasons. And I'm going to tell you something. Right now, I have a couple things to talk about. Let's talk about your new director, Lukela, and let's talk about the history of discrimination that I've seen. First, let's go to the discrimination I've seen, which ties into this. Because I sent you the story of one Margaret Belcher, who was an amazing child care provider in Columbus, Ohio. I was Margaret Belcher's lawyer. And we went to federal court. I beat them on summary judgment on 42 U.S. Code 1981. I beat them on summary judgment on 42 U.S. Code 1983 because they were withholding Title 20 monies. The county agency would not work with her to get her Title 20 monies when these white daycare providers came around and they had all the money and her clients no longer had money. She needed that Title 20 money so she could continue doing her work. She raised a valedictorian at Northwestern University, where my sister and brother and cousin Mike and Don Wilbon all graduated from. All right, so she's quality, but yet the government treated her like dirt, and so the court ruled that they failed to give her application packets for the Title 20 process. They failed to advise her of her legal rights to sue, and then they cut her off the roster list. Sound familiar? Yes, because it sounds just like the cannabis program here. All right, and then we get to court, and the court refuses to give me a jury instruction that one has a fundamental right to pursue their choice of a living. My mentor was blown away by that. Lou Jacobs at Ohio State Law, he was blown away by that. So we don't get a jury verdict. And for what here, the white jury's like, I said, has anybody ever experienced unlawful discrimination? Nobody raised their hands. And I'm like, oh, but we're nailed. So anyway, the juror catches me in the hallway on the way out and says, oh, we would have loved to have done something for your client, Mr. King, but our hands were cuffed by the jury instructions. So the moral of the story is, between the legislative, the executive, and the judicial, the whole government is an anti-nickel machine. That's the problem. And now you bring in Hugh Lukela. I'm mixing people. You bring in William Lukela. What's his track record about? What's his program? I see now that they're revising all of Colorado's. There's a bill to revise all of Colorado's cannabis, equity cannabis program. In the years that he was there, they're redoing it. And then he had the same program you talked about, giving some black folks the right to drive the product around for deliveries, the driving Miss Daisy of cannabis. Please, You know, we have the right now, or you're trying to get us the right to drive the white man's product around? Ha ha ha! Ha ha ha! I don't think so. This BMW would never be used for that. It might be used to go to my friend's store one day when we get one. You better believe that. So what is Mr. Lucala's claim to
Christopher,
fame?
you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. What is his claim to fame? Why did you hire him? Can you please tell me what he has done in his track record in Colorado that would provide fodder for you to hire this guy? I need to know. That's all. Have a good day. Pepper, I'm done. You can come out now.
Okay, and that's brings us to the end of our agenda today, except wish Mr. Mims a happy birthday and hope you have a better rest of the day than you did this morning. Have something more fun than this to do. And with that, we'll adjourn the board meeting for June 7th, 2023. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.